because that's where Herschel Walker and Reverend Ralph Warnock, the current senator, are going to have a runoff in December, because Georgia law requires that you have to win the election by over 50%, and both men are just under 50%. So with this election runoff in November, it'll be resembling what happened 2 years ago, and the Democrats won that. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens. If that happens and the Democrats, Senator Warnock comes back in the Senate, there's a good chance, a very good chance, that the Democrats will dominate the Senate once again.
Just looking at the results of Pennsylvania, we spoke about that narrow win there for John Fetterman, and what we're seeing in Wisconsin, Ohio, and Florida. What do they tell us about what could then likely happen should there be a runoff, or the remainder of the results that are still due to come out?
Well, I do believe that it's going to hinge on Georgia primarily, because Florida, of course, went to Marco Rubio and the Republicans, and Fetterman won in Pennsylvania. That was a very big victory, because that was the one seat that was actually switched over from Republican to Democrat. And by Democrats winning that seat, they just enlarged their chances of becoming the majority party in the Senate by maybe even one more vote than last time. They could end up with a 51-49 margin. And of course, if there's ever a tie vote, the vice president gets to cast it. So it's looking good for the Democrats. But the other states, for example, Nevada is very close right now. And we have Senator Cortez Masto, who's waiting to see, as the others are, on the votes coming in from Washoe County. That's where Reno is located. It's a very split area, Republican and Democrat. And it's about 20,000 more votes to be counted there. If it leans Democratic, then she will be able to capture the Nevada seat. Otherwise, it'll go to the Republicans, and you'll have the same situation as last year, with the vice president having to cast the tie-breaking vote. Arizona is also very close. There are more votes to be counted there, but it looks like Mark Kelly has a significant lead there, and they still have to count those votes. And all of that's going to take a couple of days. So we won't know anything until at least Friday in terms of which party will control the Senate. In the House, it looks like there's a better chance for Republicans to actually control the House by just a few votes, far less than what they expected. And that's the real story. The Republican red wave was blocked. It didn't even exist. It didn't come out. It was more like a red trickle. And they just may win the House by, that's about it, which is very remarkable given the fact that during midterm elections, the president's party who's in power, like President Biden, that party should lose between 20 and 60 seats. Democrats will not have lost that many at all. Very remarkable.
Just some of the analysis, if you could take us through it, saying that what we saw were people splitting their tickets, particularly in the high stakes races for governor and Senate. And sometimes you saw that people were just simply switching from Republican to Democrat. Just if you could explain to us the behavior this time round and how it differs from the last vote.
Yeah, there was much more ticket splitting this time, especially in states like Wisconsin and in Georgia as well, where the gubernatorial candidate for the Republicans won in Georgia, and yet Senator Warnock is still tied practically with Herschel Walker. Same thing in Wisconsin. Tony Evers won the race. I believe it was the governor, and then the U.S. Senator, Ron Johnson, is slightly ahead of Mandela Barnes, and Mandela Barnes was lieutenant governor. You know, he has a chance to still pick this up, but it looks unlikely because there was a lot of negative campaigning against him by Johnson. So you have these split vote tickets, splitting voting going on, I think partly because of the cross pressure that's going on in the country right now. For example, many people are very concerned about the economy and about inflation, which they tend to give the Republicans more in favor of Republicans to solve those problems, which I don't know why they do that, because we'll have to look at other things. Democrats have generally provided better economies, but still, the many voters tend to give Republicans credit for possibly fixing the economy and inflation. They blame the Democrats for it, somewhat unfairly in my view, because they still only have 2 more years in the presidency and still have time to fix it. But the other thing is the cross pressure on abortion and democracy that's going in the other direction. The vast majority of Americans support abortion choice. That would be in favor of Democrats, as well as democracy. There's great fear among the majority of Americans that democracy itself is threatened, as President Biden put, democracy is on the ballot. And we don't want autocracy and these right-wing MAGA fanatics coming in. Many Democrats said that. And many independents voted for Democrats for Senate, but also for the governorship for the Republican. That's how they split the vote, because the cross pressures of, on one hand, democracy and abortion choice, and on the other hand was the economy and inflation. Pulling
Right.
people in different directions, that could explain some of the split vote.